2 with Get Sold, and this is take 2. I'm trying to make a series of videos on a rather sensitive topic, and it's really hard. So I have a website that's been idling since 2019, and it was very important to me, um, in my inner knowing, that certain things would be laid out in this webpage. So although it's called Get Sold, there's a lot of components to it. So it's kind of like my life story. It's how I used creativity to get through abuse when I was young, um, the different processes I went through, because I believe that since we're all souls and we're all on this earth, we're all getting sold in one way or another. And the reason I feel like I want to make these videos is because sexuality has been a huge topic in my life. And I've seen both the light and the shadow of it. I grew up in a very light and dark household. Two different views on sexuality, nudity. Um, I had the perspective of Catholicism versus spiritualism, uh, going without, going within. I also know that I had body dysmorphic disorder, absolutely, without a doubt. I didn't know what that was when I was young, but I had some very embedded triggers in me from um, not so much the touch part of it, the sexual abuse part of it, physically, but when I was 9 years old, being exposed to porn, and then it was hardcore porn, and then it just kept going. And I wasn't alone in seeing it, but I'm not going to, get into anybody else, because that's their business, not mine. But I took notes when I was young, as much as I was struggling and using art to ground myself. Saved myself a lot of times when I just wanted to exit. But what I want to do is make a series of videos on that topic, but from a child's perspective, because I think we're missing the boat right now in society. I think the dark narrative is ruining our kids. And I can only talk about my story, but I'm over 50 now, and I've struggled with this my entire life. I have had triggers where um, people that I love, certain ones, couldn't look at, nude women or whatever, because I would have an all-out short circuit. And this is hard for me to say publicly. This is really hard. That's one of my deep, dark secrets that, nobody would ever understand. Nobody. I was in my own hell because there was nobody I thought would ever understand what happened in my mind when my self-esteem got shot to shit, when I no longer could look at myself. And this is at 9. This is when you're developing. Basically 0 to 7 is when you're most open. But look, your influences still take you through till you're 18 and beyond. It's what you feel, what you see, what you're exposed to, what happens to you. So when I saw porn, it was like it would have some impacts later on in life, um, even addiction at some point. And the problem was that I didn't know, I only knew one body type. I only knew because that's what resonated in my head. I'd see the same body type over and over again, and I literally wanted to make myself that way. But when you're going through hell just in abuse alone, it's not like you can just go out and be like, oh, I'm gonna, go do that. I mean, I didn't start changing and understanding any of this enough to make a big difference, enough not to make mistakes, not to keep screwing up and, have some really bad self-esteem issues. But I didn't start uncovering things until I was 52. And that's a long time to go through a lot of shit. That's a long time to try to undo and figure out and stop being a victim. I was a victim mentality up until 52, until my when my parents died. That was the system shocker. That was what and then I went through the dark night of soul thing, and that is a nightmare on its own. That's when you question your faith in God and you don't know who you are anymore, and it's meant to break you down. It's meant to spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and maybe even physically break you down, because what I was existing from birth up till that age was not living. It was not who I am deep inside, who any of us are. And my other reason for doing this is that, as hard as it is, I want this to go before I publish the website. Because I'm not trying to, what I don't want is, I don't want the website to be a titillation thing, or like, oh, I'm just trying to show off or something like that. No, it's a journey to the point where I got to 52, and then things shift. Now what am I? What do I think of my body? How do I translate? How do I feel good about myself? How do I And it's a lifelong battle, and I'm not done yet, because when my parents did die and I went through the dark night of soul, I like had a moment of invincibility. Now some fun stuff came out of that. I wrestled, which, oh my god, greatest experience ever. But I was in this like really manic state after I'd been down in the bowels of hell, and I had some work done, because I had a really, my poor stomach had been through a war zone, and it was just like a leather bag of, I can't even describe it, but it's on the website. But I just wanted, like I said, to, I don't know if you call it a prelude, a summary, something, so that maybe I can walk myself through this step of what the website is for, what my story is, how it relates to getting sold, because we're all getting sold as long as we're humans on Earth. And these are the processes, and they're not always pretty. They're not, I don't walk around as this like, oh, I'm just a light worker and everything's great and all that. No, it's dirty work. And you have to deal with the shadow side of everything. And you have to know that while you are human, you're going to walk into some shit. I have so many times that I'm like, I don't even know how to do this life. I knew I was a healer deep down, but I still had to go through all these processes in order to understand them, and I'm still not done yet. But it's almost like I've been told many times that I would be just kind of a person that goes through it with people. Like, I'm not a guru, I'm not whatever, but I'm just explaining what I went through. And if I can positively impact somebody, maybe some young girls out there, and even young boys, because they get just as twisted with porn. And I'm not a sanctimonious person in all of this, because um I'm not throwing shade on the system, but I think it's gotten out of hand. And I think the way kids are going to come out of it doesn't have to be, if we can catch it, if we can make changes. Like right now, sex is everywhere, and it's not a good self-image for our children. It's just not. I mean, at least when I was young, when I was 9 years old, there was no internet. When you walked into a convenience store, if there were nude magazines, and they're all about women, they're never about men. I used to have a big issue with that. Men were ugly, women were beautiful. Unless you're a gay man, then men are beautiful. No. But that's a whole other, that says I get rolling. But they would have no magazines out. But now it's like they don't care if they put covers on them or not, if the young people see them, if, there's no filters that I can see. And I've been a little shocked by some things that I've seen. And I'm like, nothing shocks me because I've seen it all. But knowing it's accessible to somebody like when I was 9 and what it did to me, it's like, come on, wake up, We're killing each other. We're men and women's relationships with each other suffer because we're beating each other down by these unrealistic images, and even if you are that, that you're more than that, you know? So, okay, I'm going to leave it here. I hope this is better than my other video. I'm trying to be concise and trying to just get it out there. So, video one or take one or whatever you want to call it, more to come. And if you're listening, thank you. I really appreciate it. But I certainly, again, it's kind of for me to work on that throat chakra and just be accounted for, stand up, put my hand up in the world and say, okay, I exist now. I'm not hiding anymore. And I'm going to try to grow my skin really, really thick very fast. So, thank you.